Thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to actually talk about the startup. I went to school for medicine, for biomedical engineering, and PhD in medical physics. I never think of one day I'm going to become a keynote in the business forums. So this is actually literally my very first event over here under this kind of situation. And when I accept this invitation, I was like, what should I do? I mean, then I learned about, I think about the best way to actually hide your weakness or uncomfortable is actually make everybody sleep. And what's the best way to make everybody sleep is actually my expertise, talking about physics. So I'm going to talk about the basic physics of the startups today. So this is the agenda. Get ready. We're going to talk about the physics of physics and the definition of the startup, and we're going to talk about the physics basic specifically we can apply to startup, and then the Homo sapien side of the start of a nerd. So for myself, I mean, you heard I went to so many schools. I'm comfortably consider myself as a nerd, right? And I'm not only a nerd, I'm a certified nerd. I have so many certifications. So after my daily routine before I started a company like 2 years ago is basically in the morning we need to split the atoms into pieces, make atoms like a radioactive, and tag radioactive atoms to a molecule. Those molecules can looking for disease, like a cancer or Alzheimer's disease, inject into the patients or the animals, and that the tracer looking for the tumor, and we put the patients into the scanner, and then we try to receive the signals. The signal is actually created from positron. Positron are looking for electron. Electron actually, when they find each other, they're going to start a process called annihilation, and it'll create two 511 keV photons because of the Einstein's theory. This 511 keV photons going to eject to like a 180 degree with each other. And that's just a regular day in my office. It's kind of boring. And after that, when I started my business, and I still figure out, damn, and there's a lot of physics we can actually apply into business world, and it's really helped me on the way to where I am today. So we do have power. And why physics, I think we can actually apply it into business. Because if you look at the essence of physics, it's actually a science trying to explain how universe works. It's a science trying to understand the process and phenomenon of a particular system. So if you can actually start to apply the physics mindset or the physicist thinking, then it will help you to understand the system faster and better. So we're really going to start talking about physics right now. So, every physics starts from definition. We actually try to analyze the system and put the factors out, and then we define every single factors and come out a formula. So before we talk about things today, we want to define startup. So in my talk, I define a startup like this. This is like the three definitions I found online. It's a fledgling business enterprise. And there's somebody, and the third one is actually my favorite one. A startup is a company working to solve a problem where the solution is not obvious and the success is not guaranteed. So to sum this up, the summary of this startup is actually a group or one failing rookie, trying to use a new type of service or product to solve a problem, and they're not sure if they can success or not. And in a nutshell, is actually a rookie with a cape. That's how I define startup over here. Okay, so after we define a startup, we need to talk about physics. What kind of physics is very useful for a startup? The very first thing is actually from the classic mechanism of physics, mechanic physics, called friction. So why every startup at the first or second years, it's very, very hard. Why is that? Physics has a great solution over here. If you think about when you're trying to push a broken car on the road, it's really hard at the beginning, but once it starts moving, all of a sudden it becomes so easy, and you can even make it accelerate. Why is that? It's because in physics world, there's two kinds of friction. When object is not moving, the friction is called static friction. It's going to be very, very high. Once it overcomes the maximum static friction, when things start moving, all of a sudden the friction drop to kinetic frictions. That's why you feel so easy once the car starts moving. And this is a startup. This is the phase startup is. And all our job is actually trying to overcome that friction, static friction of startup. And once the business starts running, then the resistance will be way lower. So the problem is, how are we going to put a lot of force over there to conquer that maximum static friction? And this is physics will tell you the solution too. So hang there. This is actually the most complicated page today. We all know Newton told us force equals mass times acceleration, right? And in business world, I actually derive it into this way. If the critical mass of a startup is actually the capital plus effort. And since most of a startup don't have too much capital, you need to make a lot of effort into that. And when the effort in startup actually means your time, your brain power, your labor, your sweat, your blood, and your tears. And this formula literally explains why there's so many nights you're crying out loud by yourself when you start a company. It's science. And simple science. Physics explains everything. And since a single person can only do too much, startup usually only have 1 or 2 people start over there. So even we cry out loud so much, we work 24/7, we still have the limit. So there's another way we can actually try to increase the mass, which is through this formula, what Einstein tells us, E equals mc squared. So this formula literally tells us you can convert the energy into mass. So if we can actually create more energy, that means we can convert it into mass, and when we increase the critical mass, we'll increase the force, and we can conquer that friction, static friction. So one way we can increase the energy is that we apply the kinetic energy, and this is actually the formula of kinetic energy is equals to half of mass times velocity squared. In other words, if we want to increase the energy, we want to increase the velocity. Means we have to move really, really fast. So when velocity increase, the energy increase, and once it converts to the mass increase, so that we can have more power and force to conquer things. So in summary, from this part of physics, if you try to start your company, to make your company moving forward, you need to work hard and you need to work fast. But I want to give you a note. Look at the velocity is not equals to speed. It has a small arrows on top of it. That means a vector. It means there's a direction. So don't speed so much in the wrong direction. You're going to waste your energy. Always look up where you're going to speed. And the second thing, once you overcome your friction, your company start running. During the process, there's so many important decisions you need to make. And by my definition, a startup is actually you do something nobody has done before. So there's no example for you to follow. So how many people over here, when you're trying to make decisions under these kinds of circumstances, you start panicking and you feel very, very nervous? I bet most of the entrepreneurs has this kind of experience. But physics tell us, don't worry about it. 200 years ago, people already solved this problem. And this formula is called Bayes' theorem. So this looks like very complicated, but the essence of this formula is literally to tell you, if you want to predict the probability of an event you never encountered before, you can actually look for the known event, what happened before, and use that to predict, to get a very, very close prediction of the event you want to go. And the more data, known data you collect, the more accurate the probability is going to be. So how are we going to apply this to decision making of a startup? Here we go. So before you make the critical decision, you want to estimate the possibility. You want to know what's your chance to be successful. But before you estimate the possibility, you need to identify the known events. And before you identify known events, you need to collect the information to understand the system, to understand the environment, to understand what you are dealing with. And before you collect the intel, don't panic. It's gonna be fine. Rather spend time in collecting the intels instead of have some emotional drinks. So reverse engineering this. Every time when you encounter this situation, we learn from base theorem is collect information first and then make a decision later. Since you start making a very good decision, you need to start executing your plan. And there's a lot of difficulty over there. It's you're trying to conquer the world, and the world is not easy to conquer. So what can we learn from the physics? It's Newton. Newton taught us calculus 300 or 300 or 400 years ago. So how calculus do? Is the problem Newton trying to solve through calculus at the first beginning is he tried to understand the area under the curve. So the way he actually approached is actually he drew a lot of rectangular box and trying to estimate the area of that box underneath the curve. And in his mind, if you can put the curve really thin, close to infinity, very small, that means the area you accumulate is going to be very close to the real area over there. So, and another thing Newton come out is, if you actually take a very small portion of a curve over here, you can literally see that part of a curve is a linear line over there. And that's the basic essence of calculus. What can we do from there? What can we learn from here, from our execution? First, if you have a very big, complicated task and trying to execute, try to take it apart into small pieces. It will make a curvy things into linear, and everything will be way easy to deal with. And the second thing is, if you're a startup owner and means you're a leader of a company, always remember where you are in that curve. Because when you're driving, maybe you look like this linear over here. In a big curve, it may be a huge curve. It may go down here, it may go uphill. As a leader of a startup, you have to always make sure you know where you are in that curve. And after you have a great execution, and you start to need to, you have your company grow, you have more people, you start need to encounter some management problems. What style of management you need to get it integrated into your company? It's a big problem, and the answer is not in business school, it's actually in physics too. And we can start apply second law of thermodynamics, and then this is just part of the second law of thermodynamic, but I think this is applied to our company management so well. So first, talk about it, thermodynamics is all about entropy. Entropy is a very fancy word, but it's just a unit to measure the chaos or disorder or randomness. And based on second law of thermodynamics, in our universe, no matter how, the system is always moving toward disorder or chaos or randomness. And the change in the entropy, meaning change in the entropy in the universe can never be negative. It means it will never go backward. It will always go toward the direction of disorder or chaos. So what can we learn from here? If you look at things over here, is chaos is something, or disorder is something you cannot prevent. But you don't want chaos happen in the speed and the scale you cannot control. So management is very important. But the good management over here, based on these thermodynamic things, is not trying to prevent the disorder or chaos from happening. It's actually trying to let it happening in a controlling manner and trying to direct it into a positive way. So what does the positive chaos or positive disorder means? If you think carefully, the positive chaos or disorder, it actually means you have diversity. And when you have a diversity, this is great for a startup because you actually have a very, very great group. You have a great group of people who can be very, very creative. And the creativity of a group is going on, and it can help your company to solve all unknown problems nobody in the world has encountered with. So this is actually something we learned from the very first part of the thermodynamic. But the second part of the formula, I want to put it over here and make a brief explanation is the total chaos of the system equals to the chaos of an individual system, means the small object, or it could be your company, plus the chaos of the surrounding. And it will never be zero, and it's always bigger than zero. So that means, oh, it's ready? Yeah, thank you. That means, no matter how, if you don't change, the system is going to change you. That meaning if your company doesn't move forward, your company doesn't make any difference, you're going to break down, you're going to bankrupt, the ecosystem is going to eat you alive. So be prepared. The science told us change is needed and change is really good. Now we talk about math. This is the math I talk about. I think it's called the power of 1%. Think about it. If you actually improve yourself 1% a day, based on the math, a year later, 365 days later, you improve yourself 3,700%. If you don't do anything, a year later, you're still you. But that will never be the case because everything's relative. When people improve, you just stay in the same place, you're backward. And think about it, if you just backward 1% a day, after a year later, you only have like 2% left of you. So never ignore the power of 1% when you're including when you're negotiating the contract, and try to do 1% better than yesterday, every day. And this is the culture I try to build in my company, is we are trying to pursue the excellence, but we are not trying to pursue the perfection. We just want to be a better self than yesterday. So everything works great, and you're awesome. You have your company worth $1 billion right now. So how are you going to deal with your success? Then we can learn from this Ramanujan summation. There's a movie about it called The Man Who Knew Infinity. I want you to think about this formula. It's very, very easy. If you add up every positive integral together, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, all the way to infinity, what do you think the number will be? The answer will be? Let me make it very easy. How many people here think it's a positive number? Raise your hand. Okay, plus you try to add up all the positive integrals together, positive number. Okay? How many people think it's a positive integral? The answer, when you add up all the positive integrals together. The answer is actually it's not positive, it's actually a minus, and it's not even minus, it's actually a fractional. And it's a fixed number. It will never change. So if you add up all the positive integrals to infinity, you will get a negative fractional number. That means everything when you grow it to the extremely big, it will crush and it will never live again. This formula is actually very, very counterintuitive, but this is actually a very, very useful formula in astrophysics. And if you don't plug this number in, there's a lot of formulas going wrong. So look at this, we use that to actually estimate the life of star. So every star like sun, they have a lot of energy when they explode. This is a life cycle. And to the end, they will expand to really, really big, the red giant, the red supergiant, and then they will crush, become either a black hole or a white dwarf. So what we learn from here is even you're very, very successful, always trying to be grateful and be humble. Nobody is obligated to help you, and always try to think about, use your success to help other people. Don't be a black hole or a dwarf. So after finish the talk about physics, I want you to know nerds are people too, okay? We're not trying to end living our life with through all the formulas. So this is actually my last slides. And based on my experience for the past 2 years and 3 months starting my company, is discipline is very, very important because it's required for your success. So you need to be, when you execute your plan and you're in like a high stress job, so exercise, de-stress is very important. And you need to wake up early, do a lot of things. Discipline is very, very important. And the second thing is, when you have a startup, don't think about making money. You need to have a higher goal because it's a very, very tough life. It's 24/7, and you don't know if it's going to be successful. You don't know where the end is. It's a very, very long-term wall. So you need to have a higher goal than just yourself, and that's actually the power can support you to moving forward. The third thing is you have to understand you're actually married to your company. No matter how you like it, your family, your friend, they're part of it. Okay? When you're sad, when you have a mood, when you are broke, you need borrow money, they're ultimately in it. It's exactly like it. And be grateful most of the time because you're gonna get a lot of no's. Like every time you ask me for money, ask me for help, you're gonna get a lot of no's. And nobody's obligated to trying to help you. But when people really, really willing to support you, be very, very grateful. And the fifth thing is find the small things you can control to make you smile. You're gonna feel a lot of failure one after the other, day after day. Get something you can control, make you feel better. For example, make sure your shoe is always shining. Or you always do 10 push-ups a day. And then that will make you sure you conquer something and there's something you can control and give you the force to face all those kind of frustrations. And the last thing is find the balance of life and work. I'm just kidding, you will never find it. So the last slide I want to share with you, this is actually a model of my company and my lab before. It's called Bold, Honest, and Dedicated. Every day we want to make a bold decision. We'll be honest to our failure. And we are always dedicated to our jobs. And as a startup, everybody over here is it's a rookie with a cape. That means we're heroes. And the reason we're heroes is we're unimaginable. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to keep that.